They say our reputation needs a new coat of paint and a delicate melody. But I say I like the bruises, 'cause a melody don't mean a thing if we don't have the strength to sing. And I won't be made to ever feel ashamed that I'm American made. I got American parts, got American faith, and America's heart. Go on, raise the flag.
The Talk Alternative is the 405media.com. Good evening, happy Tuesday. It is 7 Pacifico, 10 o'clock on the Lesser Coast. Once again, time for the Tami Jackson Show. The one we do anyway. She is the emerging threat from the West Coast, Tami J on Twitter. You can find her stuff at rightvoicemedia.com. She is the new media marketing person for the film Ride the Thunder and host of the midday show at KYKN, Salem, Oregon, noon to 3, Monday through Friday. And we say once again, good evening to you, Tami Jackson.
Good evening, John. It's great to be here.
There's a formal name for that show. I'm trying to figure out what it is.
And Mike...
Have they changed it?
Well, okay. They're thinking about making it shorter because Mike, the owner of the station, said, that's a mouthful. Maybe we need to make that shorter. But the brand...
Which is why I didn't even attempt it here.
Yeah, the branding is supposed to be 14:30 live midday with Tami Jackson. But that's... all the friends said it ought to be midday with Tami J, and he's thinking maybe it should be midday with Tami Jackson. So we'll see what it ends up.
Okay, we'll quit the radio jib-jab because we got a great guest. We don't want to make him wait around.
We don't.
His name is Chris Cheng. He is an American sports shooter and the History Channel's Top Shot Season 4 champion. In addition to the title, Chris won a $100,000 cash prize and a professional marksman contract with the show's sponsor, Bass Pro Shops. Cheng worked for Google Inc. from 2007 to 2012 in many capacities, primarily technical support for Google apps, as well as the product lead in Google.org's Google for Nonprofits program. He left Google in June 2012 to pursue his professional marksman contract full-time. Chris is currently touring Bass Pro Shops across the country, interacting with customers and fellow shooters, shooting in a 3-gun USPCA, IDPA, and IPSC competitions, writing a book, and working with the National Rifle Association on promoting the shooting sport. Chris Cheng, good evening and welcome to the Tami Jackson Show.
Great, yeah, thanks for having me. Really excited to chat with Tami and have some good conversations.
Yeah, Chris, it's so funny because we have been emailing off and on for weeks now, and you are one busy guy. We'd think, oh, this week will work, and then, oops, I'm doing a hunt here, and then suddenly you were in Mexico hunting birds or something. You're on the go all the time.
Yeah, the travel is kind of nonstop for me, and thankfully I love traveling. And you mentioned this Mexico dove hunting trip, and originally we were supposed to have this interview I think like a month ago.
Yes.
And about I think maybe like 3 weeks before the interview, I get this call out of the blue, and it's from one of my shooting buddies, and he's telling me about this 3-day, all expenses paid dove hunt trip in Mexico that he won at an auction. And he had won it like a year ago, and they had scheduled the date a year ago for the shoot. And in between that time, his niece got engaged, and she was getting married the same week as the hunt. And so my buddy told me, he had to back out at the last minute, and he was looking for someone to take his spot. And the hunt was Monday through Wednesday. And most people can't just like take off work, on a few weeks' notice. But my job is to go hunt and shoot and and travel. So I said, yeah, I'm available, and had an amazing time in Mexico. Having grown up in Southern California, Mexico was a frequent vacation spot for my family and friends, and it was great to go back. Had an amazing time. The birds were active, and just an amazing time.
Where was the hunt in Mexico, Chris?
It's this town called Hermosillo, and it's a town that I think there are like 800,000 people in the town. And if you just drive about 30 to 60 minutes outside the town, there are all these different hunting areas and everything from upland game to deer and sheep, and I think a few other types of animals. And so hunting is really big in the area.
Wow. Yeah, I've been in Mexico a few times and went through it to Guatemala, where I was a missionary for short term up in the mountains there, and was an interpreter. So I know Mexico a little bit from driving through and so forth. So it's interesting. I never thought of the hunting in Mexico. Chris, you were born in Mission Viejo in Orange County. You are the son of a Chinese American father, and your mother is Japanese Cuban. All I can think of is you must have had some pretty spicy cuisine in your home.
Well, so actually, the only out of the Chinese, Japanese, Cuban, American ethnicities, from a cuisine perspective, only two of them like spice, and that's the Chinese and Americans. Well, the Japanese have wasabi, so that's definitely the exception. But Cuban food is spiciness is not a sensation that exists in Cuban cuisine.
Wow.
Most people who have Cuban food, either for the first time or have had it, on occasion, they typically describe it as bland. And I grew up with Cuban food, and so it's just sort of whatever you grow up with just sort of becomes normal, and your palate gets acclimated to that type of, the flavors and the spices. Right. But on a side note, on a related note, I do love spicy. I love hot sauce. I'm sort of a hot sauce aficionado, and love trying different hot sauces. I've kind of got like certain hot sauces for different types of foods, and at home I think I've got like 10 bottles of hot sauce that are sort of my favorites.
Yeah,
I rotate.
I saw in my research that you were a foodie, and I've a lot of my friends don't even know this, but for a while I did catering one summer and had a lot of fun doing private catering in my hometown of Bend, Oregon. And I grew up cooking from the age of about 5. My grandpa, during the Depression, there weren't any jobs, and he'd just come over from Norway, been over here just a little bit, and there were jobs at a logging camp. He got a job under the head cook, who happened to be a 5-star pastry chef from San Francisco.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so my grandpa could do everything. He could plumb, he could wire, he could build, and he could cook. So he taught me how to do all that from a very young age. I'm very much into cooking. So I saw this, and I thought, oh, how interesting. And okay, Chris, if you want to have battling, bland food, I'm Norwegian. And Norwegians are funny, and they're fun people, and they can ski, and they can survive in the cold, and they had cool boats or something. But let me tell you, except for lefts, they are not known for their food. So, it is usually white, and it's usually bland.
Oh God, yeah. I haven't had a lot of Norwegian food, but I'm definitely aware of Norwegian food, stereotypes. One of these days, I'll get to Norway. I mean, I want to, get
gorgeous.
to. But yeah, I've heard and seen plenty of pictures. Definitely, I know Scandinavia is just a really beautiful part of the world, and I look forward to the day I get to take a trip there.
You majored in poli-sci with a focus on American government and political media, and I'm thinking, how did you end up at Google?
Yeah, isn't that sort of the $1 million question? And so, when I was at UCLA, I actually started off as an electrical engineer. and my parents were, really excited that I was in engineering. This was 1998, where specifically biomedical engineering was a real hot up-and-coming major and career path. And my dad, he was in the medical industry, and so, he was saying, oh, yeah, biomedical engineering is going to be the next kind of, big thing. And, after a year of engineering, I just did not like it. I didn't get any sort of personal fulfillment. And, my career aspirations, being a freshman in college, was I wanted to go work in Silicon Valley. At the time, Google didn't exist, but Apple was one of my companies that I would just love to work for. So, working for Apple was sort of an end goal, but when I switched out of engineering, that goal of working for Apple or working in Silicon Valley and working in tech kind of flew out the window, because the 19-year-old mind, that I had said, oh, well, you've got to have a technical degree to work in Silicon Valley. So I kind of just, put those, Silicon Valley aspirations in the trash. But it wasn't until, fast forward to 2007, so this would have been 8 years later, I graduated with a master's degree from the Monterey Institute in California with a master's in international policy. And, you pair that up with a poli-sci degree, and, I was planning to go into government, military, and I was applying, for the Air Force officer program, etc. But then one of my grad school friends, his cousin worked for Google at the time. And we were in Lake Tahoe snowboarding, and I happened to mention, this old dream of yore that I wanted to work in Silicon Valley, and, work for Google or Apple would just be amazing. And long story short, I gave him my buddy my resume. He sent it to his cousin, and 6 weeks later, and after 11 rounds of interviews with Google, I had an offer in hand. So,
wow.
How could I say no, to working at Google when, the government's not going anywhere? I can always go work for the government.
Right.
Yep, exactly.
Well, and it's interesting. I'll tell you, my youngest brother is a CS prof, and he decided to go into education because they had some good offers. But in his spare time, when they need help, he is the Apple programming troubleshooter. So,
cool.
Yeah, so if they've got a platform for an iPhone and it's not quite going smoothly, they call him up and he comes in and saves the day. And so when we have a family gathering, it's like Apple appliance and devices everywhere. Everybody's got iPhones and iPads and Airs and you name it, we've got it all. So I'm with you on that. I understand that. Hey,
is your brother the family's support, tech support desk?
Well, a little bit, but believe it or not, although I'm kind of a chatty person and I'm artistic and I write and I do all that stuff, I'm also a little bit of a geek. So at my past corporation, I was the second in command to the permanent IT person that helped everybody. If he was gone,
cool.
I was the person that helped with everything. So yeah, I do all that stuff and I help the family with a lot. Wayne's usually in the zone doing whatever high-powered stuff he's doing. and my little nephews are pretty techy too. But hey, we've got to take a break. You're listening to the Tami Jackson Show, and I will be back with my guest, Top Shot Chris Cheng. This is Tami Jackson, and here at the405media.com, we are all about entrepreneurs and style, which is why I am so excited to tell you about our new sponsor, MadStyleVintage.com. At Mad Style Vintage, they have everything you need to feed your retro addiction and fulfill your vintage lifestyle. You can shop in a fun and unique environment while listening to a mix of the best